Welcome to the Michigan BEAD Breakdown webisode series from the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office, or MiHi. This series is focused on helping Michigan residents, businesses, local and tribal governments, and community organizations understand the BEAD program and what it means for communities across the state. Our goal is to provide clear, reliable information and help answer a question many Michiganders are asking: where's my internet?
Welcome back to the Michigan BEAD Breakdown. My name is Simone, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Aaron.
Hey, Simone, it's great to be together again.
In this episode, we're going to tackle a question we hear often, and that is, why are there so many broadband programs? You may have heard of names like BEAD, RDOF, Reconnect, CAFT, Robin, or ECAM. And this can feel like a very long list of acronyms, and understandably, that creates confusion. The reality is that broadband expansion in Michigan has not happened under just one program. And so over the years, there have been multiple federal and state efforts, and each with a different purpose, funding source, and timeline.
The confusion is so real. Sometimes when I explain my job to people and who I work for, my friends and family are saying, "Oh, so your office is going to be the one bringing internet to my house?" And I say, probably not. It's probably a different program. And we hear from residents like this all the time. I'm sure, Simone, you've talked to many people just like this who look up their address on our broadband map and they see one program listed, but maybe their residence, their location, their whole area might have been associated with another program, or they've heard about a new program in the news. And so often from a resident's perspective, it can feel very unclear which program applies to them. And everybody's asking the same question at the end of the day: where's my internet? How's it getting to me, and who's bringing it here? That's really what people want to know, I think.
Exactly. And that's why we wanted to dedicate an entire episode to this topic. So our goal today is not to overwhelm you with a lot of technical details or policy language, but instead we want to provide clarity on these programs. And so we're going to explain how they are different, why they were created at different times, and how they fit into the broader effort to expand reliable high-speed internet across Michigan.
So we're going to do our best to try to keep things straightforward and talk through the programs in order. We'll start with some of the earlier federal efforts, move into the later expansion programs. We'll talk about some state level initiatives and really finally later try to talk about how BEAD fits into the picture today. Through our conversation, we're going to try to highlight a few consistent points for each program, like who's funding the program and how many locations and what the timeline is, so we can contrast one program to the other. And hopefully by the end, all of us will have a clear understanding of where's my internet, where is it coming from, and what the current broadband landscape looks like in Michigan in terms of the multiple efforts and multiple programs that are in place right now, bringing internet to each of us.
That's right. And so we understand that this is a lot of information. And so we also put together a fact sheet that highlights each program. And you can get a copy of this fact sheet today by clicking on the link in the comments below. Let's begin with the program called CAF1, which stands for Connecting America Fund Phase 1. CAF1 was a federal broadband program administered by the Federal Communications Commission, or the FCC. At the time, many rural communities only had traditional phone service and they had very limited internet options. And so this program was created to start upgrading these areas so that residents could actually access broadband. In Michigan, CAF1 provided just over $10 million in funding to support broadband deployment to approximately 14,000 locations. CAF1 operated between 2011 and 2015. And it represented one of the earliest large-scale federal efforts to transition rural support programs from voice service toward broadband connectivity. Now, CAF2, which is also the Connect America Fund Phase 2, was also administered by the FCC, and it built on the first phase by expanding broadband commitments in rural areas. So in Michigan, CAF2 provided over $635 million to support over 2,770 locations. And then the timeline for CAF2 ran from 2018 through 2028.
Oh, it's still going. Wow.
Yeah, that one still is. So between the two programs, there was an investment of over $645 million to support over 17,000 rural and hard to connect locations across Michigan. And so the next federal program is called RDOF, which stands for the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. And that's another FCC administered program. It was designed to further expand broadband access in areas still considered underserved after earlier programs. So in Michigan, RDOF provided nearly $324 million in funding to serve over 153,000 locations. There are 15 RDOF projects in Michigan currently, with a timeline running from 2021 through 2032. Another major federal effort from the FCC is EACAM.
EACAM is yet another acronym. It stands for Enhanced Alternative Connect America Cost Model. It's the last of the FCC programs we'll talk about today. It actually is funded through the Universal Service Administration and started in 2023 kind of as a way for previous FCC programs to transition or roll into what hopefully would be a final program. All of these different broadband programs where there's kind of a vision or an ideal hope that they'll close the digital gap. If they haven't, another program often evolves out of them, and that's the case with EACAM. It's a program of about $535 million and about 41,000 locations, all of which have to be wrapped up and completed in the next couple of years. They have to be finished by 2028. It's interesting how old some of the programs are and how they're still going and how they've evolved over the years. There's a program called Reconnect, which, unlike some of the other programs we talk about that are ultimately administered by the FCC or flow down from the FCC, Reconnect is administered through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It's a little different in that regard. And it started back in 2019, and there's since been 5 different rounds of funding, and they keep adding funds to the program. Each round of funding has grown the program in both dollar amounts and number of locations served. And to date, I think Reconnect is right around $150 million in loans and grants. It's interesting that way. It's not just a grant program, but companies can take loans, and about 8,000 locations connected through the program. Another interesting thing about Reconnect, because it's through the USDA, it's very rural oriented, and it's not only a program that funds infrastructure to rural residential locations, it also funds educational facilities and farms and businesses in very rural areas. Those were all the federal efforts. Michigan also launched and administers a couple of programs through the MyHigh office that we're a part of. And we talk about this in terms of having a connected future, Michigan's connected future, in terms of answering the question, where's my internet? The first one of those is Robin. So the Robin program stands for Realizing Opportunity with Broadband Infrastructure Networks. It's a competitive grant program funded by the America Rescue Plan. Some people know that as ARPA. Then those funds roll down to the state. So Michigan could administer those funds and run the grant program. Totally, there's about $457 million in the program. 238 million of those are grant funds, and then the other 219 million were matching funds from the people who, or the companies rather, I should say, the entities that won those awards. And Robin's a great program. It's going to bring broadband infrastructure to right around 82,000 residents, locations, and businesses by the end of this year, 2026. In fact, and we have some statistics that say as of the very end of 2025, the program was about 60% completed. So it's well over halfway done, and we'll finish up this year. In preparation for the final program we're discussing, BEAD, we should point out that Robin grant recipients, other federal grant recipients, and lots of other agencies and entities participate in something called the BEAD challenge process. And this was to avoid duplicative federal funding of any single location, any overbuilding. And so that kind of brought us to the point where we are now in our story. And Simone's going to talk to us about the BEAD program.
That's right. So the BEAD program, that stands for Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment. And in Michigan, the BEAD program is administered by MyHigh, but funded through the bipartisan infrastructure law. Michigan's BEAD program will provide about $1.6 billion to serve nearly 200,000 locations across the state through 131 projects. The project timelines for BEAD are expected to run from spring of 2026, so in the next few weeks, through 2030. And BEAD represents the largest single broadband investment in Michigan's history to date and builds upon all of the other efforts of the earlier programs that we've discussed so far.
You've probably heard about BEAD in the news. It's a lot of money, and it's supposed to be doing a little bit of batting cleanup, to finish up where other programs may be stopped or where there's still gaps. And hopefully, as we kind of wrap up this conversation, you get the idea that it's not any one single program that is bringing internet all over across Michigan, that Michigan's broadband landscape has been shaped over time by multiple federal and state efforts. They each have their own funding structure, requirements, and timelines. And MyHigh is responsible to administer a couple of those, like we talked about, Robin and BEAD. But we try to be aware of the other ones as well, so we can help residents and people who are interested in answering the question, asking the question, where's my internet, to understand what these different programs mean and exactly how it affects, or if it affects at all, their location. There's no wrong questions. Some people don't care about what program affects Michigan other than where they live or work or study. But hopefully, as a community, we understand collectively that this has been a lot of investment over a lot of years.
Yes, and that's a very important point to remember, that all of these programs and their differences explain why some areas were funded earlier under one initiative, and why others are included in newer programs, and then why some timelines have varied over the years since they've started. And so it also helps to clarify where we stand today with our broadband efforts, and for you to understand that we are building on years of prior investment. BEAD doesn't just exist in isolation. It's a part of a very larger ongoing effort to close gaps that earlier programs just couldn't fully address.
If you take one thing away from our conversation in this episode today, we hope it's that, broadband expansion is not a single moment in time. You can't take a single snapshot. It's more of a layered evolution, a process. And the role is to ultimately get us to universal access. It's why we like our mantra of having a connected future, Michigan's connected future, or my connected future, that we're moving towards this future of time where everyone is connected and everyone has access to broadband services. And all of these different programs have played a role in getting us closer to that goal. In future episodes, we hope to continue breaking down how the different efforts translate into real-world progress across Michigan.
And if you have any questions about any of the programs that we've discussed today, please feel free to reach out at any time. You can submit questions on our website at michigan.gov/myhigh. And just, to help us out, your questions really help us to fully understand what needs more clarification, what you want to learn more about, and so we will know what information will be most helpful in future episodes.
Simone, as always, it's been fun hanging out, talking about all these different acronyms and programs that sometimes maybe make our heads spin a little bit. Hopefully, we gave some more clarity. Just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us on the My BEAD Breakdown. Until next time.
Bye.
Thank you for watching the Michigan BEAD Breakdown, presented by the Michigan High Speed Internet Office. We encourage you to stay connected and stay informed as the MyHigh continues working toward reliable high-speed internet for every community. For the latest updates on the BEAD program, construction timelines, and available resources, visit the MyHigh website at www.michigan.gov/MIHI. While you're there, please sign up for the MyHigh newsletter to receive emailed updates as the program moves forward. If you have questions or want help finding information specific to your area, you can contact the Where's My Internet team at 517-648-5156 for Lower Peninsula residents or 906-235-6411 for Upper Peninsula residents. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Leo YouTube channel to stay up to date on new episodes of the Michigan BEAD Breakdown. Until next time.